stand-up for me was a little interesting because I was getting really good at stand-up before this one crossroads and before I started up again, this one point. And I said, in order for me to really, I could take that road, but I would want, for me, I'm a workaholic. I would want to write every day and perform every day, 3 times a night sometimes, go to look at and really give it all. And I think that's what it takes to really, to be the best you can be, like an athlete. And if you don't do that, you're like, fuck, because you're like, I knew that didn't hit, or I knew it's like being a bat, you're like batting, like playing baseball, and the pitches are coming to you, and you're like, these pitches would look so much slower if I just went up all the time and wrote all the time.
Yeah, there's a work ethic that has to come with it, but that is the work ethic of an artist, and that's sort of like quite fleeting because sometimes you just don't feel like it, although the muse isn't there. So you can work as hard as you want, but you can't force nothing. There's nothing there. You can't force it.
Right.
But
it's gotta be authentic.
You do also still need to be working really hard.
All right, I'm here with Chris Stokes, and we're going to get into we're over in England. That's where he's at. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about British stand-up comedy. We're going to talk about his career. Take us back to the beginning. Where are you from? Were you the funny kid? Why stand-up? Where did you first perform? All those questions. Tell us a little about yourself.
Try and remember all of those. Where am I originally from? It's don't know whether the region stateside, but you must have seen the show Peaky Blinders, right?
Oh yeah, I love that show.
Okay, so Peaky Blinders is obviously set in Birmingham, but they keep talking about the Black Country lot. Now, the Black Country is a region just next to Birmingham, and that's where I am from.
Nice.
Sort of like quite industrial area, deprived in the 70s and the 80s. I came along in the 80s, so I grew up in the aftermath of that. And then next question was I the funny kid? The answer is no. I was not the funny kid, because to be the funny kid, other people have to find you funny, which wasn't the case. I was the weird kid. And then the next one was, where did I first perform? That was when I was a student. I just decided to get up and try it, because you're just a bit emboldened when you're a student. New horizons and all of that.
Where was that?
So that would have been in Wales. That would have been North Wales.
Was it at a comedy club?
It wasn't. It was at the student union. There was a comedy club there. There's a thing called it doesn't exist anymore, but it was called the Comedy Network, which was run by a company called Avalon. They used to go and do gigs at almost every single university. So they did used to turn the Students' Union into a comedy club, but I mean, like, I was not even a proven amateur, because this was the first time I performed. So I did it in that same space, a kind of like open mic thing. But
did you do well?
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Because I've heard stories of people that gigged for the first time. It didn't go well, but they still felt compelled to do it again. And I think if it hadn't gone well, I think I would have just not done it again. But it went well enough for me to be like, nah, there's something here, because you get hooked. So it's like, oh, it's this is something I didn't realize I was going to enjoy doing as much as I do. So
most people, me included, do well the first time, and then the second time you just suck.
And that happened, but then I'm chasing the first one. So it's right. Like, yeah. So I don't know what it is. It's either a perverse kind of like that first one, even if it was a fluke, I have to make sure. So, you keep doing it, don't you?
Right. So now, what's your writing process like? Has that grown, and what's that? How did that?
Well, I think like the more you do it, there's no way. I was about to say the more you do it, you can't do anything but get better. But I've seen people that are still the same like 15 years later.
Right.
But I guess like the better you get at actually being on stage and doing it, because the thing about, because the writing process is interesting. I love the writing process, but it's barely half of what stand-up is, because it's so immediate and in the moment, and it's a performed medium and not a written one. So when I started, it was all very overwritten, because that's what I was doing, and that's where my strength was. And then you get better on stage, and then eventually, sort of like if your writing skill starts there, but your performing skill starts there, eventually that comes up to meet it, and eventually that will get better because you're writing. You don't take your foot off the gas, but you don't need to overwrite, so you don't write as much.
Right.
Because to some degree, I don't know about you, but you have to leave a certain element to chance, you know? So if someone's doing if you're booked to do a 20-minute set, like I used to write like 20 minutes of material. Now it's like between 12 and 15 because I know there's going to be stuff happening and if there isn't stuff happening, I'll instigate it by chatting. So my writing process is less pen on paper, black and white anymore. And it's just, I think that's funny. And then you let it percolate, you try it out, and then you just refine it that way. So I don't actually write down as much stuff anymore, unless it's like an idea that I don't have much faith in. I'll try and see what the shape of it is on the page. But otherwise, all the writing gets done sort of like in your head and via your mouth.
Right. So yeah, and the way I'm a ham and egger. That means like I started doing stand up when I was 19, and then I stop, and then I do again. And off and on for all those years.
Why is that called a ham and egger?
I stole that from Rocky 1 when he's sitting there. He's like, Rocky, you want to fight Apollo Creed for the championship? And he goes, hey, look, I'm just a ham and egger. Creed, he's the best. And I don't know what that means. I guess ham and eggs are like just low rent, or I don't know.
I guess. I love Rocky, but I hadn't picked up on it as being a Rocky quote.
Yeah. Well, I love sleepy quotes. I love like things like my wife and I were just talking about this, there's like certain movies where, Blazing Saddles. He's this Mongo comes in. You know the movie Blazing Saddles?
Yeah.
Mongo comes in there, busts open the saloon doors, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, it's Mongo!" And then and then like all of a sudden somebody goes, you hear "Gutanu," which is Yiddish for like, "Oh my God!" Like it's like, which is like it's a subtle line, or like I just love My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where there's a line that's told, she's like, gives it a bundt cake, and then she gives her the cake, and then you hear in the background, "You fixed it," So I don't know, I just like those sleeper lines. I'm digressing. So
no, they're the ones that get bedded in because it's all in the line delivery, isn't it?
Anyways, so what was your material that you talked about in the beginning, and has that changed?
Yes, it has. I guess like you said, you started when you were 19, right? So I was a little bit older. I was 21, which is still too young to have life experience. So what the fuck am I talking about? Oh, can I swear, by the way?
Yeah, you just did. Yes.
Yeah, I know. But then it might make it hard on you if you have to go and bleep it out. But
say whatever the fuck you want.
Oh, okay, great. Just like you don't know what's what. You're sort of like still figuring things out. You think you know what's what. That gives you the confidence to do stand-up in the first place. But I didn't have any it was all in front of me. None of it was behind me. So I didn't have any cool stories except, what stories have you got when you're 21? Your friend threw up.
You were the quirky guy though. You said
I was, yeah, but by that, just the sort of like guy that, thought stuff was funny, but nobody else agreed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Also, I was the tiny kid. I had a growth spurt when I was about 13. But I was like always the smallest kid with sort of like cartoon eyes and cartoon ears. I looked weird as well.
Yeah.
That's
so perfect for stand-up. You want that?
What's that?
Perfect. That's perfect for stand-up.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I kind of like wish I could capitalize on it a bit more. I've still got the sort of like pointy ears, but I've grown into my eyes a bit.
But then again, see Chris Stokes. Actually, I swear to God, as soon as you logged on, I was like, this guy looks perfect for stand-up because but he looks cool, but he's slender.
Oh, thanks.
He's got a good head of hair still, and he's got, he looks like, what's so weird, when you first start doing stand-up, I got to diet up because I don't want to be like, because I'm not overly fat, and I'm not like, so I want to like lean on stage. Does that make sense? You ever do shit like that at the beginning?
Yeah. So I got told actually, because the material I did do when I started off was the sort of like quirky offbeat stuff because I didn't have much life experience.
Yeah.
And it was again, like I said, right. The reason I do a mystery podcast is because I like puzzles. So I saw stand-up material as like a puzzle, because you know when you've got that idea of like there are only so many notes, but you can keep writing songs out of them.
Yes.
I kind of had the same idea with stand-up, and I was like, you've got to find new stuff. But by now, there's been decades of stand-up comedians. There's been thousands of them, and there's only going to be more. Like, how do you, with a limited amount of tools? Because it's all about, I know vocabulary is like, it's not limitless, but there's plenty of it. But like, how do you combine it all to have stuff that no one's heard before? So that's what I meant by overwriting as well. So I would sort of like spend so much time on that my delivery would be very sort of like deadpan, because it was just all in the writing rather than actually having any performance skills. But when it came to appearance, it's not something I really thought of to begin with, because again, I was still concentrating on the writing. I wasn't really concentrating on the performance and appearance and stuff. But somebody actually said to me, they were like, do you know what? And this is like, how old was I? 21. So like 18 years ago, I still had like I had no sense of vanity, because I was always the weird looking kid. But somebody said to me, they said, because I had long hair at the time as well, they said, you're a little bit too pretty to be doing the material you're doing. And I was like, what do you mean? They were like, it's kind of like, it's good material, but your look doesn't match what you're doing. So I was like, so I started scruffing myself up and wearing like really like not awful clothes, but like where it looked like I hadn't made an effort, you know?
Right.
So when it came to looking lean, I was lean anyway, but like I said, I had no vanity, and then that became engineered, as in like it was almost deliberate to look a bit of a scruff bag.
That makes sense. You do all these little things that you think matter in the beginning, and after a while, you're like, oh shit, it just matters on if I'm being authentic and the material's good.
Yeah, exactly. But again, at the time, I don't think I was being authentic. I was trying too hard, because I was falling back on like this persona. And that you sort of chip away at that the more you do it. And then now I think like maybe you're the same when you go and do a gig and you're talking to an audience. Hopefully, if a friend of yours has come to watch you, they won't tell the difference between you off stage and you on stage.
Yeah, that's reps, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that just putting in the reps and doing the time?
Yeah.
How often were you going up? How often do you go up now?
Back then I was going up as often as I could, like no real social life, and making every single penny that I had count to get to gigs and be able to just sort of like, because it was like back then, and it's a shame that we lose it, or at least it's a shame that I think we lose it in this country, which is every gig does count. Every gig is the most important gig of your life, because it's for a new promoter, or it's for a new booker, or an agent's coming, or like once you kind of settle into it and it becomes a job, the hunger kind of goes. And I don't think it should, because it's not fair on the audience, because that audience way back, when you were that hungry for it, got way more effort from you than like the gig I'm gonna do tonight, for example. You know what I mean?
What are you doing tonight? Where are you going tonight?
It's a little village south west of London. It's called Walton-on-Thames. Now, I would love to gig in the States, because it's a really romanticized version over here of what stand-up is, because like the term road comic, like your country's massive. Yes. A road comic here is just a comic. Like we just drive 3 hours, and 3 hours is nothing to you, right? So
that's in L.A. You can spend 3 hours on the 405 trying to get from the valley to the city.
Yeah, exactly. So, but over here, like our country's so small that you must look at us and go, like, you know what I mean? Right. The gig I'm doing tonight is going to be an hour and 15 minutes drive there, hour and 15 minutes drive back, maybe an hour at that time of night on the way back, less traffic. 20 minutes on stage. We're coming up to Christmas, so it's going to be works, Christmas dues, all of that. it it won't be like super artistically fulfilling, but it's still going to be a lot of fun. I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. But I think what I mean is I am going to turn up sort of like roughly knowing how to deal with it. Whereas back when you're brand new, you don't know how to deal with it. And there's kind of like excitement in that. Because I think the better you get, you don't completely eliminate the possibility of bombing, but you do mitigate it way more. So like there's less chance of bombing now. Doesn't mean it's gone away completely, because anything could happen. Right. But like you get better at sort of like minimizing the risk. So I don't know, maybe that's why the hunger goes, you know. I'm going to sit in traffic a little bit. I'm going to turn up. I'm going to do the gig. I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm not going to have that like this could change everything for me sort of thing.
Right. And that's a really good point. That's a veteran's point on how to mitigate the like, let's say you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that just didn't hit. Oh, and that didn't hit either. Oh shit. The fourth thing just didn't hit. And then you're like, but when you're good and when you've been there so many times, you know how to deal with that.
Yeah, but what you've made me think of something, which is I think you do have those flashbacks to being brand new when something you think's going to hit doesn't hit, and you kind of get excited, or at least I get excited, because it kind of like I go, oh wow, then I don't like this isn't what I thought it was, and now I've got to recalibrate. But I enjoy that feeling, because then you're like, oh God, this is like feeling like it's your first gig again.
Yeah, see, you're right. That's an interesting feeling, because that's when I get that when you've done it for so long, and then I think Bill Burr likes to kind of like dig a hole for himself and see if he could dig it out. You know, as to where like I said, I'm off and on, and I was doing stand up about a little over a month ago here locally, and 2 jokes just really hit really well, and then I went into something. It's funny. People said, I don't think that routine's going to work. What do? You do it again anyways. You know? and it didn't work.
You do.
And I felt so bad. And I was like, but because I've done bad before, and you know how to navigate out of that. But then it's the kind of like where you're at the out of body experience where I'm like, shit. You know, and I'm like, this is a band loop. This is I'm in a pattern here, you know, and you navigate out of those negative patterns a lot better. And then to where you get to the point where you perform so much that you, like the Bill Burr, like try to like dig himself out of a hole.
Well, yeah, you make it sound like he digs the hole deliberately, which I
think he does. That's what I really does.
So I don't do that, and I don't like doing that, because I think maybe, I don't, I know full well I could dig a hole for myself on stage, but I don't think I've got enough faith in myself to get out of a really deep one. Right. So I think it's probably best. Like, I enjoy the feeling, like it's a frisson of like, that always works, because if it didn't, I wouldn't have said it. So what's gone on in this moment that you didn't respond to it? Because you don't know each other. You're not like, you haven't had a meeting beforehand to decide what is and isn't funny. But this is a joke that I've been saying every night for the last 3 years, and it's just laid an egg completely. And I don't know why. Like, I love that feeling, and it's why. And you have to have these little reminders, because you know this idea of like, you overwrite stuff and you're trying to figure out, and I was trying to work out what the puzzle of stand-up comedy is. The fact is that there isn't one. It's not a science, because it's why it's an art. So that it doesn't have really the rules that we think it does. And occasionally moments like that remind us of it, and it's like, we're not in control of this, like we are servants to it. So I think it's another reason why people keep going back and doing it, you know, even if that's probably like in a microcosm what we were talking about earlier about how people who maybe don't get better but still feel compelled to do stand-up.
You know, your career's gotten to a certain point where you have peers, you know, isn't a lot more fun when you're going to a gig and you know somebody, and it's like, you know, because sometimes it could be lonely, but now the longer you've been around, you get to see at least, you know, other people that you're doing the same thing, and it's more pleasurable, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so strange, especially, I don't know what it's like in the States, but in the UK, where we are essentially like all quite close-knit group, and like like you say, peers, and a lot of us are friends, but every single one of us is in competition for each other's job.
Right.
But it kind of like, that doesn't really come into it. When you actually get down to it, because there's too many comedians and not enough gigs, but we all still enjoy each other's company when we see each other in a green room and just sort of.
Right. That's a weird thing that I don't talk about enough, I guess, is that, no matter how long you've been around, unless you're like so blatantly great, then it's really easy to be magnanimous, but when you're, when there's parity between you and the other comedians, and even if you've known them for a long time, but there really is, there's no thumbprint, like, let's say Chris Stokes, you're your own unique person and your brand. No one's competing really. You're just trying to find out the genuine part of you that you could really open yourself on stage to really display that. Right.
Yeah. I suppose it's like, the idea is that hopefully no one will steal your material because they can't. It's not because, do you know what I mean? It's like the goal will be that they can't steal your stuff because they just won't be able to do it. Like the only person that can do it should be you. That's not always the case, obviously, because, there's, like I said, there's too many of us that like, there's always going to be similar comedians. And like, even just the genuinely honest, organic, same thought, but two different people, that happens. And
where's your favorite venue, and who do you like to perform on the same night that you perform?
The best venue in the UK
that you like to perform at.
That I like to perform at.
Could be anything. I'm just curious.
There's a gig that is in Brighton, which is on the south coast, that didn't move venues actually. The gig at the first venue got poached from this promoter, who then had to set up another one. Mm-hmm. And that other one that he's had to set up out of necessity, I've only done it once because it's a fairly recent thing, like the last 2 years or so. And when I went to do it, I thought it was too nice a gig. It was one of those where it was like they laugh at things that you'd forgotten you'd kept in. So it was the opposite of, why did that not work? And then occasionally, sort of like just through repetition, you'll gloss over a line that you used to make more of. And it's kind of like, oh, they're laughing at that. Oh yeah, I keep that in for a reason. And it's for these people, obviously, because no one else sort of like really responds to it in the way that they did. It's one of those gigs where it's like, they are fully attentive. They're very playful, but not malicious. And it was just a fun vibe. It's called The Forge. Don't know if your listeners are international. The Forge Comedy Club in Brighton is superb.
And who do you like to perform with on the same night that you're performing, and why do you like them?
So there's a comedian called Peter Brush, who is he's got the thing that is my ultimate goal, which is no one can steal his thing, because it's him through and through. Mm-hmm. It's not a case of like Emo Phillips could take one of Peter's gags, do it, and people would go, that's a really good joke, but it wouldn't be as good as when Peter does it. Like, It's one of those things. And I'm not saying that Peter's better than Emo. It's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is that Peter is so unique that it's just, his stuff is, so it's a treat when you gig with him, because we don't gig the same night with the same people every night of the week. Sometimes you go months or a year or so without seeing somebody. So when Peter's on, it's like, oh, that's good. I hope I'm on before him, sort of thing.
Where are you at right now in your career?
It's a strange, a happier point than usual, because when you started doing stand-up, it was a passion, and then it started to go well very, very quickly. I was very lucky. But the love went out of it. It was a grind. It was a job. And I was very lucky to be able to make it a job as well. But I wasn't getting as much pleasure out of it. And then I then got picked up to do tour support for he's a big name in the UK. Don't think he's translated to the States. He's a one-liner guy. He's probably like I've already mentioned Emo Phillips. He's probably like a British Emo Phillips. He's got crazy hair. He wears bright Hawaiian shirts by the name of Milton Jones. And his tours are quite extensive. They're quite big. I ended up opening for him on 3 of those. So that was about 3 years of solid work that wasn't clubs. It was like big theatres, and it meant I got a new challenge. So then I was like, I've fallen back and straight in love with it. And then COVID happened, and I just was a bit like, so my agent at the time was let go from her company because of COVID. And I was a little bit like, there's no point me chasing a new agent now when there's not even any gigs. Like, there's nothing to do. There's no work. And then when gigs started coming back, I was really glad, and it felt like starting again. It felt like it was a proper leveler. So then I ended up falling back in love with stand-up again, but also the autonomy of like, well, now I don't have an agent. Now I'm not like dancing to anybody's tune, really. I'm going to do my own, what I want to do. So I'm still gigging, like it's picking up gradually since COVID, and I'm still gigging fairly regularly, but loving it way more than I ever have.
What's the long-term goal? Do you have like a pathway that you kind of setting for yourself?
I think I'd like to write a book. I would like to just keep doing what I'm doing. I haven't written an hour, a brand new hour. I haven't written one of those in about 4 or 5 years. So I'd like the idea of next year. I've got a work in progress of a brand new hour in February. And I'd really like to turn a new hour around by this time next year. That's new. That's stuff I haven't even like said yet. And then I guess I don't really want to become any more successful if it's going to come with it the unhappiness that did before. So I'd quite like to still enjoy doing stand-up, because there is nothing worse than doing stand-up when you do not enjoy it.
Oh yeah.
And you're torturing yourself. You're the only one doing it. You don't have to do it. So it's like,
that's right.
I would love to still love it. That's the long-term goal.
And there's so many reasons in front of your face constantly why you shouldn't do it. and at the same time you're miserable. That's not a good combination.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. It is one of those things where I'm not going to use the word defect, but there has to be something different in our brains to keep doing it, because it's so like alien to most other people. How can you do that? I could never. I couldn't think of doing that. Oh my God, you're so brave. It's like, none of that. I don't feel brave. Do you feel brave?
Well, no, because I haven't done stand-up since I bombed like 4 weeks ago. So
right.
I'm a pussy. I know I'm not. I mean, there was a point where I was, but the stand-up for me was a little interesting because I started to make money. That's the kiss of death. I started a business and I'm like, holy shit. And then you get a family. And I was like, one is I was getting really good at stand-up before this one crossroads, and before I started up again, this one point. And I said, in order for me to really, I could take that road, but I would want, for me, I'm a workaholic. I would want to write every day and perform every day, 3 times a night, sometimes go to look at and really give it all. And I think that's what it takes to really, to be the best you can be, like an athlete. And if you don't do that, you're like, fuck, because you're like, I knew that didn't hit, or I knew it's like being a batting, like playing baseball, and the pitches are coming to you, and you're like, these pitches would look so much slower if I just went up all the time and wrote all the time.
Yeah. There's a work ethic that has to come with it, but that is the work ethic of an artist. And that's sort of like quite fleeting, because sometimes just don't feel like it. Although the muse isn't there. So you can work as hard as you want, but you can't force nothing. There's nothing there. You can't force it.
Right.
But
it's got to be authentic.
You do also still need to be working really hard. So, and then it sometimes doesn't go hand in hand. Sometimes like you can be feeling really productive, but have nothing to work with. And then other times you could be like, I've got loads to work with, but I can't, I just don't want to.
The worst is when you like get it like a dinner party and you make people laugh. It's like, when you doing stand up, it's like, I'm just involved in another project and I can't really do that if I'm going to neglect this. But no, you should go out there and do it. I'm like, you don't understand. You want to be the best you can be when you go up there, So I want to get in shape. Yeah. It's like that bike that's sitting right next to you, It's like, you just can't like sit in there. It's like, I haven't ridden the bike in 7 weeks. I'm just going to get on here and do like, an hour. Is you're going to be huffing and puffing, So
the odd thing is though, is if I got on that bike for an hour, I'd probably think of like 3 or 4 bits.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, yeah. Is that your, did you create like a relationship between, has that been a pattern for you? You get on that bike and you thought of some good ideas and then you're like, shit, I'm going to ride tomorrow because I think it's a good ideas.
No. I don't actually, no, that's my partner's bike. I don't, so this is our, I guess, office. So I'll do recording in here, but she will use it like every day for work. Okay. So that's there for, sort of like if she has a spare 15, 20 minutes. I've used it occasionally, but I do think unhooking your brain makes you come up with the best stuff because you can't go, it's like I said, you can't force nothing. You can't chase stuff. And occasionally things will happen to you or occur to you, And like, if I'm on the bike.
You do get ideas on that bike though.
Sometimes, yeah. Or like if I'm driving, if I'm not thinking about writing, something will come. But if I'm thinking about writing, nothing will come.
Exercise when you want to write. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because it's a personal development thing. Because it pumps up your dopamine, and when your dopamine's high, you're more creative. Your brain's operating, better. Little tip for the little boys and girls, pump up your dopamine. You want to write stand up.
Yeah, I do a lot of swimming. So I think about like in the pool is very.
That's tough though, because it's hard to like jump out of the pool, grab your iPhone and start making notes and then jump back in.
Yeah, but there is a wind down after swimming, which is, you're in the shower and then you're still letting that thing percolate. And if you think of something while you're swimming, you're like, I'm going to do 4 more lengths. Or not that I'm going to keep swimming until I've decided that idea is ready to go or something, or like I've thought of a topper, or I've thought of actually or I've made that idea into a joke. Then I'll get out of the pool. So sometimes it can be a motivator for 2 things. But I wouldn't have thought of that thing initially if I hadn't have been in the pool, not thinking anything. Because you're just focusing on one task, aren't you?
Yeah, great. You think of great material. You feel like you won like a mini lottery. It's the best feeling in the world. And the worst feeling in the world is when you go to deliver that and it turns out to be shit.
Yeah.
I never won the lottery at all. I can't believe that.
Yeah. The numbers came up, but it was a ticket from last year or something, it's like, it'll promise you something and then it'll cruelly take it away. But then it's like, you can't just rely on it being a fluke. You got to try it again.
Are you going to perform in United States ever? Or
I would love to. I really would love to.
Have you yet?
No, never. I would love to.
Are you ever going to plan to come out and plan something? Just say, "Yeah, shit, I'm just going to do."
Yeah, I need to get my head in gear about it as well because of like who to contact, like where to go. But yeah, no, I think it would be. I really would love to because there's not necessarily because there's such a difference, I think, between the way that British and Americans approach doing stand-up, but also the way British and American audiences consume it. Like, I think and I really want to work out whether or not my stuff works over there.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, how to make it work over there.
I love that subject matter. I love it so much to talk about the differences of the way different cultures and what type of humor and stand-up comedy that they like and respond to more. You could go to like different parts of the United States and then that's true too. But when you go to another country, like with Great Britain, and I talk to a lot of British comedians who say, it's self-deprecating maybe in a sense, even Ricky Gervais and there's other guys that are, but they're self-deprecating in the sense that you can't be too big for your britches. Don't try to act like something big when you're, if you, without tongue in cheek, kind of, it's a very fine line, So I think that's fascinating, is where the United States, sometimes you'll see a comedian come out there and he's braggadocious and everything, and it'll hit big.
I think the person on stage always has to be, to some degree, the alpha. But we, as in British, try and disguise that a little bit more.
Yeah.
You'll get a flash of it if there's somebody who in the audience decides they want to be the alpha, and then it's sort of like the pretense will drop, and it's like, no, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
However, what a bumbling idiot I am, and it is. You're right. It is strange. I think actually because Americans tend to be more inclined to be proud of their achievements than we do. We'll try and downplay anything we think we're good at. Even if we know we're good at it, we'll be like, thanks. Right. And I don't know. There must be something to do with the empire about it. That must be how we conquered the world.
I think it's fascinating. I love that subject matter. I love that we could talk about that more often, about that, but I think it's great. And I think that you're going to enjoy that process, being a seasoned comedian coming into America and touring and finding out the differences and all that. And I think people love that too. I think that I wish, more people would just kind of like enter into the other person's country and just like say, I'm going to do a 2-week stint and do as many days as I can. I know other comedians do that, but I think
I've gigged abroad before, but it's only in only Europe. Like I've never been, which is bananas when you think about it, because I've gone and gigged in Estonia, where English isn't their first language, but I haven't been out to the States where you speak my language.
Right, right.
So it's strange, isn't it? So, but yeah, no. So how can it be any, it's going to be different, but how can it be more different than going and doing a gig in Estonia?
Yeah, and really stand up. You're just trying to have a Bandaloop, relationship with the audience and really try to make them laugh and have a good time. And I think that with all the reps that you've had, I think you'd thoroughly enjoy it. And I look forward to seeing you when you come out here. Yeah.
Well, I'll let you know if I do.
You will. You must. You shall. All right. Tell everybody how they can find out more about you.
So you can go and you can find me on X, formerly Twitter. And if that platform lasts beyond Christmas, it's at @_Chris_Stokes. You can find me on YouTube at the same handle, but the channel's name is Chris Stokes, A Nerd Reborn. And then my podcast is also Mystery on the Rocks. You can find that on everywhere you get your podcasts. And I also co-run the storytelling collective Natural Born Storytellers as well, which is naturalbornstorytellers.com.
Chris Stokes, thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks, Michael. It's been great.
Thanks for joining us. Gear up for your next adventure and head over to bolotour.com to check out the amazing Bolo Pack and their other innovative outdoor gear. Catch you next time.